All right. Welcome to Creekside Book by Book for March 16, 2022. And tonight we're going to be going over Joshua 18 through 21. And last time we were looking at the divisions of the land, and it was a lot of really exciting stuff on divisions of the land. And there's more of that today. So, but this time there is also a little bit, there's some interesting there are more interesting things this time throughout the passages. So we'll pause a little bit more and read a little bit more of the text. So let's just jump right in. Verse 18, or 18 verse 1. The whole assembly of the Israelites gathered at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting there. The country was brought under their control, but there were still 7 Israelite tribes who had not yet received their inheritance. So Joshua said to the Israelites, "How long will you wait before you begin to take possession of the land the Lord, the God of your ancestors, has given you? Appoint 3 men from each tribe. I will send them out to make a survey of the land and to write a description of it according to the inheritance of each. Then they will return to me. You are to divide the land into 7 parts. Judah is to remain in its territory on the south, and the tribes of Joseph in their territory on the north. To the north. After you have written descriptions of the 7 parts of the land, bring them here to me, and I will cast lots for you in the presence of the Lord your God, our God. The Levites, however, do not get a portion among you, because the priestly service of the Lord is their inheritance. Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have already received their inheritance on the east side of the Jordan. Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave it to them." As the men started on their way to map out the land, Joshua instructed them, "Go and make a survey of the land and write a description of it. Then return to me, and I will cast lots for you here at Shiloh in the presence of the Lord." So the men left and went through the land. They wrote the description on a scroll, town by town, in 7 parts, and returned to Joshua in the camp at Shiloh. Joshua then cast lots for them in Shiloh in the presence of the Lord, and there he distributed the land to the Israelites according to their tribal divisions. All right, so one of the first key things in this section is setting up the tent of meeting at Shiloh. And so this is going to be, for a good long while, the place where the tabernacle is established. And so this is a central location, and I have that same map that I had last time. So let me share my screen here with you. Let's share this right here, share. And I have Shiloh is right here. And so it's a central location in the land, and it is the place where the tabernacle is. It's going to be kind of the civic center, if you will, of the nation for the time being, until they establish the capital of Jerusalem. Shiloh really is going to be the main thing there. And so when we get to the book of 1 Samuel, we'll see that Eli, the priest at the time, is still ministering in Shiloh. So that's an important establishment of that. But then Joshua is talking to them, and he points out, like, you have not yet taken your land. So there's 7 tribes who haven't gone and established themselves in the land, and so they need to get moving. And so Joshua then is asking them, first of all, to pick 3 people from each tribe, and they are surveyors. They're going to go out and survey the territory so that they can have an adequate description of the land and the territories as they are casting lots for the tribes to know where they are going. And so this is first section is a little repetitive, because we have Joshua's description of what he wants to do, him telling the people to do it, and then they go and do it. And so there's a repetitive nature to this section, but it is all part of the plan. And just to be very clear, like, we are doing what God has told us to do. you are supposed to go and move into the land. So they start by, so they'll come back and they'll cast lots for it. And so we get the land for these territories. And so they must have cast lots, and then we get to read about what they did. So the first one is for Benjamin. And I'm going to just go ahead and read this so you get a feel for the land layout. The first lot came up for the tribe of Benjamin according to its clans. Their allotted territory lay between the tribes of Judah and Joseph. On the north side of their boundary began at the Jordan, passed onto the northern slope of Jericho, and headed west into the hill country, coming out at the wilderness of Beth Aven. From there, it crossed over to the south lope of Luz, that is Bethel, and went down to Adaroth, Adar, on the hill south of Lower Beth Horon. From the hill facing Beth Horon on the south of the boundary, turned south along the western side and came out at Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Jearim, a town of the people of Judah. This was the western side. The southern side began on the outskirt of Kiriath Jearim on the west, and the boundary came out at the spring of the waters of Nephatoah. The boundary went down to the foothill facing the valley of Ben Hinnom, north of the valley of Rephaim. It continued down to Hinnom Valley along with the southern slope of the Jebusite city, and so to En Rogel. It then curved north, went to En Shemesh, continued to Gelioth, which faces the pass of Adumim, and ran down to the stone of Bohan, son of Reuben. It continued to the northern slope of Beth Arabah and on down into the Arabah. It then went to the northern slope of Beth Hoglah and came out to the northern city bay on the Dead Sea at the mouth of the Jordan in the south.
It's the survey.
This was the southern boundary.
I guess it's Benjamin.
The Jordan formed the boundary on the eastern side. There were the boundaries that marked out the inheritance of the clan of Benjamin. The tribe of Benjamin, according to its clans, had the following towns: Jericho, Bethel, Lagah, Emek, Keziz, Beth Arabah, Zemarim, Bethel, Avim, Para, Ophrah, Kephar, Ammoni, Ophni, Geba, 12 towns and their villages: Gibeon, Ramah, Beeroth, Mitzpah, Kerapha, Moza, Rechem, Irpil, Taralah, Zelah, Elapah, the Jebusite city, that is Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kiriath, 14 towns and their villages. This was the inheritance of Benjamin for its clans. All right, so I'm not going to read all of them that way. I just wanted you to get a feeling for how this shapes out, because they're giving this survey, giving you all of these different turn by turn essentially directions. And so let me bring up the map so you can see again where this is. So the tribe of Benjamin is this gray spot right here. And so this is Judah, and the tribes of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh are up here. And then the tribe of Dan is right here. So yeah, so all of those little turn by turn, the different cities are all in this one space. Now, Benjamin does not have a very large piece of land, and some of the key pieces in the land include Jericho, Bethel, and the Jebusite city, which is Jerusalem, right? So Jerusalem will become the capital of the nation under King David, but eventually it's going to be assumed into the tribe of Judah, because it's like right in this area. So I don't know why it's not on this map, but yeah, so that's the that is the Benjaminite tribes. Then we have, this is, I think, the longest one. Yeah, it is. That's the longest description of all of the different allotments. And so, yeah, so that's, it then goes on to Simeon, and it lists in each of these different sections, it starts to list out the different cities. And those cities will come up later as well, because they are going to be a part of the Levitical cities, and then the cities of refuge and all the different tribes. So that's one of the reasons why these are important. And so with the tribes of the clans of Simeon in chapter 19, 1 through 9, and Simeon, though, is an interesting piece because it's in here inside of Judah. And 19:1 just says the second lot came out for the tribe of Simeon according to his clans. Their inheritance lay within the territory of Judah. And the verse 9 then says the inheritance of the Simeonites was taken from the share of Judah because Judah's portion was more than they needed. So the Simeonites received their inheritance within the territory of Judah. So this is really the only situation like this where a tribe is inside the allotted land for any of the other tribes. As you look around, like they all kind of have their own boundaries and borders, but it was much more land than Judah could use. And so Simeon is in there. Over time, Simeon is going to lose influence and really become subsumed into Judah. Like we're not going to hear a ton about the tribe of Simeon for a lot of the history of the people of Israel. The next one, the third lot came up for Zebulun. This is in verse 10 and its clans. And Zebulun is, which color is Zebulun? The grayish purplish one is Zebulun. So I think, is it this one? Come on. Yeah, that one. Zebulun is up here. And I do like the one of the descriptors in here in verse 12. It turned east from Sarid toward the sunrise to the territory of Kisloth Tabor. But just like that, toward the sunrise is like if they're writing a tourist brochure, they are giving them head towards the sunrise and come to beautiful Kisloth Tabor. And so then their allotment is all listed in these, and then 14 and 15 give us some of the villages that are a part of that. In here, there is a listing of Bethlehem, but that is a separate Bethlehem than the one that is where David's family from. That's where Jesus is born. This Bethlehem is a different one. And so in these cities, there could be multiple cities with the same name over time. And so that's one of the challenges with placing some of these different cities in history into where would this be today? Because sometimes there might be multiple names. And so that's just something to keep in mind. Those are two different Bethlehems. Then we have Issachar, which is the pink one here. So this is Issachar. And so verses 17 through 23 give us the basic boundary of Issachar. And then Asher, which is this one here. And so Asher is on the coast. And so there's Tyre and Sidon. Those are two significant port cities. They will be a part of the history of the people of Israel. And this, at the farther north we get into the allotted territory, the more we're going to see that they didn't really take all the land. And so these are going to be contested areas for a while. So that's Issachar, and then Asher, Issachar, and then we are on Naphtali, which is this light yellow one here, another large section by the Sea of Galilee. And so Nazareth is up in where Jesus grew up, is up in this region up in here. And so that, we have these different lands. There up here, it does have fortified towns, and then so then we have Dan, which is this light green one over here on the coast. This is Dan, and so bordering with Benjamin, and that's there's not a lot of commentary on these different things that I found that was of great interest. Just saying this is where these things are. But when in the future, as we read through the Bible, the southern kingdoms and the northern kingdom tribes are going to split after Solomon's son Rehoboam takes the throne. They're going to split, and Dan is going to be one of the border town tribes, and so they will have a cultic center here in the northern kingdom, and we'll talk about this when we get to it. But instead of having the people go all the way to Jerusalem to make their sacrifices, Jeroboam, the king of the northern tribes, creates a altar in the Dan's territory, and then an altar in the north as well, somewhere. I can't remember where off the top of my head right now, but so so that's something to be paying attention to. There's going to be another temple, shrine, altar set up in the future, which is part of their rebellion against the Lord. And so all of the tribes now have their territory. They're all in place. And then in verse 49, it says, when they had finished dividing the land into the allotted portions, the Israelites gave Joshua, son of Nun, an inheritance among them, as the Lord had commanded. They gave him the town he asked for, Timnath Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim, and he built up the town and settled there. These are the territories that Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the heads of the tribal clans of Israel assigned by lot at Shiloh in the presence of the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And so they finished dividing the land. Now, we don't have a specific command in the law that we've read so far where Joshua was the people, or the Lord told the people to give Joshua the land. So here it says, as the Lord had commanded them, but we don't know where that command is. But it's interesting. Caleb is early on saying, I'm 85. I'm still able to take the land. I want Hebron. I want to take this hill. And so they do that early in the allotment. But here at the end of the dividing up of the land, Joshua takes land in the land of Ephraim, and it's Timnath Serah. And Timnath Serah, it means leftover. Like he took the land that was left over, and which is just an interesting character for us as we think about Joshua. He didn't demand the first things; he took what was remaining, and so all of these divisions were all a part of the Lord's direction for them to divide the land amongst all the tribes, to cast lots to determine who gets what. And so it was not a like a game of chance or a gambling to determine who gets what, but it was saying, essentially let the Lord decide which tribe gets which territory. And so, so they're going to start moving and start repopulating these cities. They will have problems as they are not fully driving out all of the different neighboring kingdom or nations, and the Canaanites are going to be around, and it's going to be a challenge for the people. So that's something to keep in mind as we read through the historical books. Chapter 20 then starts setting up these cities of refuge. Now, if you remember, Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh, we have Levitical cities already established on the east side of the Jordan River, but now they're going to make sure that they also do the west side of the Jordan River. And so that's the next section in chapter 20. It says, then the Lord said to Joshua, tell the Israelites to designate the cities of refuge as I instructed you through Moses, so that anyone who kills a person accidentally and unintentionally may flee there and find protection from the avenger of blood. When they flee to one of these cities, they are to stand in the entrance of the city gate and state their case before the elders of that city. Then the elders are to admit the fugitive into their city and provide a place to live among them. If the avenger of blood comes in pursuit, the elders must not surrender the fugitive because the fugitive killed their neighbor unintentionally and without malice aforethought. They are to stay in the city until they have stood trial before the assembly and until the death of the high priest who was serving at that time. Then they may go back to their own home in the town from which they fled. So they set apart Kadesh in Galilee in the hill country of Naphtali, Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. East of the Jordan on the other side of Jericho, they designated Bezer in the wilderness of the plateau in the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead in the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan in the tribe of Manasseh. Any of the Israelites or any foreigner residing among them who killed someone accidentally could flee to these designated cities and not be killed by the avenger of blood prior to standing trial before the assembly. And so we've talked about this a couple times as they are giving these laws, but here we do have a bit of an expansion on what the person is supposed to do. So if somebody has accidentally killed somebody, like an axe head flew off the axe handle and killed somebody as they were chopping wood, it was not something that somebody did out of anger. It was a pure accident. They could go to one of these cities, and here they are told to make their case to the elders before the elders then welcome them in to the city. And this is one of the, it's part of a hospitality code where if people are coming to you in the ancient world, people are coming to you for protection, for provision, they are under the protection of your house. And so this is essentially like saying the city of refuge is a house then, where that city is being that the hospitable force that is keeping somebody protected from the avenger of blood. And so, but again, we see these stipulations. They have to stay there throughout the trial, and then also until the high priest dies. And that's one of the questions that came up again in reading about this. We read about that before, but here again, they're saying we're not entirely sure why the death of the high priest is important to when that person could leave. But part of it is potentially with the amount of sacrifices as part of the atoning work and the preparatory work for the high priest. Those sacrifices are essentially like a atonement for the sins of the people in a bigger way. So, but we're not entirely sure why that is the case. So these are also Levitical cities that so there's a priest in those towns. Like there are, it's a religious center where they can also work these things out. But the elders, I do think it's important to note that the elders have to hear the case, welcome the person, and then while the investigation is happening into whether or not this is a homicide or a case of manslaughter, they are protecting them. It's not just that somebody can just run and just say, no, you have to let me in. There's a whole procedure of verifying their story. So that's the Levitical, or the cities of refuge. And then chapter 21 gets into the cities for the Levites. Chapter 21 says, now the family heads of the Levites approached Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the heads of the other tribal families of Israel at Shiloh in Canaan, and said to them, the Lord commanded through Moses that you give us towns to live in with pasture lands for our livestock. So as the Lord had commanded, the Israelites gave the Levites the following towns and pasture lands out of their own inheritance. The first lot came out for the Kohathites according to their clans. So Levi had Kohathites, Gershonites, Merarites. So Levi had 3 sons that developed into like the major tribes, and so or clans in here. So that's why it's going to list them out this way. And so the Kohathites, according to their clans, the Levites who were descendants of Aaron, the priests, were allotted 13 towns from the tribes of Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin. The rest of Kohathites' descendants were allotted 10 towns from the clans of the tribes of Ephraim, Dan, and half of Manasseh. The descendants of Gershon were allotted 13 towns from the clans of the tribes of Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and half tribe of Manasseh and Bashan. The descendants of Merari, according to their clans, received 12 towns from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Zebulun. So the Israelites allotted to the Levites those towns and their pasture lands as the Lord had commanded through Moses. And so the list of all of the cities and the lands around them were important because the Levites, as part of the sacrificial system, they also had these herds that the people were bringing for the work of the sacrificial system. And so there were flocks and herds that needed to be cared for. So this was part of why there were pasture lands around the different Levitical towns. All told, there are 48 towns that the Levites are receiving, and they are spread throughout the city or throughout all the tribes, so that there isn't one town where all the Levites live. They're all over, and the Levites are intended to be a spiritual resource, a religious instructors for these different towns, so that people don't have to go too far to go see a priest or to have a priest come and see them. Because remember, we had these laws about things like skin disease, mildew in the house, and uncleanness and purification. And so having the Levites spread throughout, the Levites really were the ones who were going to be assessing these different needs. And so having them accessible was an important part of God's plan for the people and interacting with the Levites throughout their life. And so they're all throughout. And so then we get the list of the cities from the tribes of Judah and Simeon. They allotted the following towns by name. These towns were assigned to the descendants of Aaron, who were from the Kohathite clans of the Levites, because the first lot fell to them. They gave them Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, and its surrounding pasture land and hill country in Judah. Arba was the forefather of Anak, and so Arba, Anak, Anakim, so the Hebron is also the town that Caleb wanted to take, and so Caleb is a mighty man for God, and he's fighting the Anakim, the descendants of the Anakim, who were mighty men. Anyway, but the fields and villages around the city had given to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, as his possession. So Caleb still was responsible for those pasture lands around Hebron, which is important to note here. So the descendants of Aaron, the priest, they gave Hebron a city of refuge for one accused of murder: Libnah, Jatir, Eshtemoa, Holon, Debir, Ain, Judah, and Beth Shemesh, together with their pasture lands, 9 towns from these 2 tribes. And from the tribe of Benjamin, they gave them Gibeon, Geba, Anathoth, and Almon, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. The total number of towns for the priests, the descendants of Aaron, came to 13, together with their pasture lands. And sorry, I have a note here. Beth Shemesh later on is going to come up in the story again, when they are the people are going to lose the ark to the Philistines, and then the Philistines are going to have trouble with the ark in their temple to their God, and so they send it back, and it ends up in Beth Shemesh. And then, so that's just something to note here. Verse 20, the rest of the Kohathite clans of the Levites were allotted towns from the tribe of Ephraim. In the hill country of Ephraim, they were given Shechem, the city of refuge, for one accused of murder, and Gezer, Kibzaim, and Beth Horon, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. Also from the tribe of Dan, they received El Tekeh, Gibbethon, Aijalon, Gath, Ramon, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. From the half tribe of Manasseh, they received Tanakh and Gath Ramon, together with their pasture lands, 2 towns. All these 10 towns and their pasture lands were given to the rest of the Kohathite clans. And then we have the Gershonites. The Levite clans of the Gershonites were given from the half tribe of Manasseh, Golan and Bashan, a city of refuge on one of the accused of murder, and Bet Eshtara, together with their pasture lands, 2 towns. From the tribe of Issachar, Kishion, Dabarat, Jarmuth, and Ganim, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. From the tribe of Asher, Mishal, Abdon, Helkat, and Rehob, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. From the tribe of Naphtali, Kedesh and Galilee, a city of refuge, for one accused of murder. Hamath, Dor of Kartan, together with their pasturelands, 3 towns. The total number of towns for Gershonite clans came to 13, together with their pasturelands. The Merarite clans, the rest of the Levites, were given from the tribe of Zebulun, Jochanim, Karta, Dimnah, and Nahalal, together with their pasturelands, 4 towns. The tribes of Reuben, Bezer, Jahaz, Kedemoth, and Map'ath, together with their pasturelands, 4 towns. From the tribe of Gad, Ramoth and Gilead, a city of refuge for 1 accused of murder. Mahanaim, Heshbon, and Jazir, together with their pasturelands, 4 towns in all. The total number of towns allotted to the Merarite clans, who were the rest of the Levites, came to 12. The towns of the Levites in the territory held by the Israelites were 48 in all, together with their pasturelands. Each of these towns had pasturelands surrounding it. This was true for all these towns. So those, not some of the most exciting reading, I know, but all of these different places were given to the Levites. And so that's also part of the map here. So let me share this with you again, just so you can kind of see where they're spread out throughout the nation. The plus signs here are the cities of refuge, and then there's the circles are Levitical cities that we know where they are, and then the circles that aren't filled in, we don't know exactly where they are. And if we zoom in, we can see there are still more, because there's 48 total. And so we can see they are spread out all over the place. So, yeah, so that's kind of the distribution of the Levites, so that the people are not far from the Levites. One of the things that stop sharing. One of the things that Moses, when he's writing in Deuteronomy, he's writing to telling them about God's law, and he says it's not far away that you have to go find it, but God brought the law to you. And now with the Levites being distributed throughout the land, that's something else to keep in mind. Like, the Levites are the ones who are supposed to be well versed in the law, and so like the law and the representatives of the law are not far from you. Like, they are not unattainable. They're accessible people that can come and be a part of the life and rhythms of the people of Israel. Last section here in verse 43. So the Lord gave all the land he had sworn to give their ancestors, and they took possession of it and settled there. The Lord gave them rest on every side, just as he had sworn to their ancestors. Not one of their enemies withstood them. The Lord gave all their enemies into their hands. Not one of all the Lord's good promises to Israel failed. Everyone was fulfilled. So they have completed the necessary conquest at this point, and they know rest at this point. And one of the themes that we read about in the book of Hebrews is there's a theme of inheritance and entering into the rest of God's people. And it is referring back to this concept here, that the Lord is our rest. And so for the people of Israel, now they are able to say, like, all right, we are in the land, we are able to flourish and prosper, and God has done this for us. And so they are able to start working towards nation building. The next week, this section is going to be, Joshua's final words to the people. But it is he's going to choose this day whom you will serve. Those kinds of things are all going to be in next week's passage. But this rest that we see here in Joshua is not going to endure for as long as we would hope, because we'll jump into the book of Judges and it will be less restful for the people. But that ultimately comes down to their disobedience. And so at this point, we have a leader that is keeping the way of God central to the people of God. They're located in Shiloh. It's a central location. Joshua is the charismatic leader that is holding the nation together, but they still have no king, and they will have elders and leaders in their towns, but they don't have a unifying force. And so all of the tribes are going to kind of do whatever they see fit in their own eyes. And then we will also see that these tribes will war against each other, and they will be upset when they aren't called up into battle and defending other tribes and their interests. And so there's going to be a lot of tension for the people of Israel in the coming years after Joshua passes. So so that's our section. So there's a lot of overview of land distribution. It's not a lot of super exciting elements in this week's passage, but they've distributed, they've moved in, and they are nation building. So any questions or thoughts for this week and the land in particular? So
Were the Levites, was Joshua in a tribe?
Joshua is, I believe, that's a good question. I'm going to not just make something up. I'm gonna look it up. I can't remember
That's
exactly
okay.
what tribe he's in.
That's okay. I thought maybe you would know. I
There's,
just thought maybe he would be with his tribe, but maybe he's with his tribe, but he has his own land.
Yeah. Joshua. Where? Tribe of Ephraim. He was a member of the tribe of Ephraim. And so his land was in Ephraim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty sure. Let me just double check. Where'd it go? Tribal inheritance. Because Ephraim.
He wasn't your average Ephraimite.
No, he was not. It was in Ephraim. Yeah. So he was with his tribe. He got the leftovers based on the town name. But yeah, he was unique. So all the other spies, remember they said that there's giants here and they didn't want to take the land. So Joshua is unique in his faithfulness, being from Ephraim, but it's really just him and Caleb. And so they're also the only two 85-year-old men who are coming into the land. They're it. No one else. They're the oldest people in Israel right now, is one way to look at this. And so, so they are unique. They are, important parts of the history. So, any other questions, thoughts?
Of course, I have one.
Okay, great.
Well, it's more of a thought. Is there any expansion on why Simeon was absorbed into Judah?
Well, what the text tells us is they're put in that section just because the land was too big for Judah. Why were they absorbed? We don't know that 100%. But anytime there's a minority culture or a minority group surrounded by a larger group, over time, that minority group will assimilate into the larger group, generally. And so, and here they're not ethnically different. They're just a different family. And so it probably just was easy to just become a part of the larger culture around them. So it is weird though, when you look at the distribution. Let me share this one more time. when you look at the distribution of the land here, like this is weird. Like to have the tribe just right in the middle of Judah, knowing that like there's no reason why they couldn't have just like cut it, even like to say, Simeon, you can have from Gerar like straight down across all the way to Tamar, right? They could have done that. I don't know why they didn't, but it's not really up to me. So yeah. So, but we're not really told why Simeon kind of veers away, but like these Eastern tribes, they also kind of drift away because, and we're not really told all of the reasons why, but they, this Jordan River separation does have a significant challenge in keeping people connected. So while the Eastern tribe of Manasseh could walk over to the tribe of Naphtali, that they could do that, but we don't really see a lot from them in the future. So
Yeah, it's weird that they were plunked down right in the smack dab middle of it. No water access, no nothing.
yeah, it's weird. I don't know. So all right. Any
Maybe
other
than fishers.
what was that, Christy?
Maybe they're more farmers than fishers.
Yeah, maybe. One of the things like over the last couple of weeks watching the news and looking at the nations surrounding Ukraine, maps are weird, right? And like the division of land is strange. Like I don't know why Moldova is like blocked in. Like Ukraine has like this jet of land under Moldova that includes Odessa, and like it's like historically Ukraine. I get that, but like Moldova is like blocked in by Ukraine and Romania, and there's this little piece of land that is Ukraine that like it could be a port city for Moldova, but it's not. And I don't know. And so this kind of like breakup of the land here, like we have Simeon like just locked in here. We have Ephraim is this blue one here that doesn't have any access to the river or the Sea of the Mediterranean, and then also which one is this up here? Zebulun also is like just locked in with no real access to the Sea of Galilee or the Mediterranean. So there's just these divisions are weird to me. They don't really make good sense. So, but I'm not in charge of these things, so I just have to say it is what it is. But I don't know about you guys, but growing up, I went to church, and I had a Bible with maps on the back of my Bible, and there were so many Sundays where I was so bored, and so I would just stare at these maps like all the time. And so like this atlas that's in my Bible software is so cool. And like I have friends who bring their laptops to church, and it's like I can't do that because if I'm not preaching, I'm going to be looking at all these maps, because like I have like, oh, here's the path that David took when he was running from his family troubles, and then getting into the New Testament, when Jesus went to visit the temple, like this is the route they would have taken. Let's see, the early church, all of the major church cities that are mentioned in the book of Acts, Paul's missionary journeys, all these things would just distract me too much. So, because I love maps, I'm going to hit stop now so I don't have to keep looking at the maps. But yeah. Any other questions? What was that, Carrie?
No, they are pretty cool. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, it's just super interesting. So what I would like to do with this atlas is to be able to overlay a couple different maps at the same time, but I haven't figured out yet how to do that. Someday. Yeah. Any other
Can I ask a
Thoughts?
question on that? May I ask a question on that? Is there a way to overlap and see what they were originally supposed to take and what they actually took? Is there a way
Well,
to
yeah,
kind of
actually,
superimpose it so we can see it, you know?
yes, Carrie, good question. This is the, let's see here. So this map, I'll share this with you again. This is the incomplete conquest of Canaan. And so these different, let's see, what's the key here? The flag is events with this location. So these are the different places where we know they did not drive out the enemy, the Canaanites. So they, as we read in this passage for Benjamin, here's Jerusalem right here. They said the Jebusite city. So right in between the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, there's this city that is populated by Jebusites. And the Jebusites are not going to be driven out until David is king. And then they'll eventually drive the Jebusites out, and David will move in and make that the capital of the nation. And that will really, it's part of the tribe of Benjamin, but it's really going to be a part of Judah. So yeah, so these are the different places where we know that there is Canaanite strongholds there. So yeah, does that answer your question, Carrie?
Kind of. I was overall, I'm just wondering, like right now, how much of it did they actually overtake as comparison to what God said, hey, this is your area, take it.
Oh yeah, I don't have that map, but yeah, so I'm just kind of scanning through here. No, I don't have that all laid out. So
No worries. I mean, I
Yeah.
can look at it, just from the written boundaries and try and look on it on the actual map and see. Just
Right.
hard because of the way the old area was in comparison to nowadays.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
don't
and
know
some of these places we don't know where they are.
Yeah.
Like we don't have firm proof of some of these place names, because so many different nations have conquered Canaan and Israel over the history, that places get different names, cities get completely destroyed, archaeological records are not conclusive, and so there's a lot of questions still. So yeah,
So
any
when they
other?
rested because they were done. They weren't really done.
Yeah, I mean yeah, basically there was more to do, but they were allowed to rest.
They
So,
needed to rest or whatever, but they really never weren't finished completely with what God wanted them to do.
right.
All
Yeah.
right.
All right.
Just curious.
It's like
Yeah.
you sound disappointed, Chris.
But you just thinking about it, and I was thinking, well, they didn't do everything God told them to do. And then but they rested because they were done. I just wondered.
Yeah, there was more to do for sure. So yeah. All right. Any other thoughts or questions? No? All right then. Well, I will let y'all go. I'm gonna hit stop record here, but I have a question for Stephanie that since you're here, I'd like to ask you a question. So I'm gonna hit stop recording, and I'll see you all later.